Even before slavery, there was suffrage. Suffrage is the right to vote in political events. Slaves or any African Americans were not allowed to vote until 1865 legally, but in reality, it was somewhere around 1965 that they truly have freedom to vote. Only white males who owned property could vote for a long time. Several cases have been brought to courts about African American suffrage. In 1953, there was Terry versus Adams. This case opened the 15th Amendment to apply to any election where a public official would be elected. So now, regardless of race, any man could vote. Another case that happened in 1966 was South Carolina versus Katzenbach. This case helped to show that voting rights apply to the 15th Amendment. For those of you who don't know, the 15th Amendment is in the Bill of Rights and it allows black men to vote. The 15th Amendment says that the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by a state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. A more recent case, Rice versus Cayetano in 2000, said that limiting voters in Hawaii voting for a state office for those whose ancestors lived in Hawaii before 1778 was a 15th Amendment violation. Although even in the 15th Amendment, there have been things such as the Grandfather Clause that have continued to prevent African Americans from voting. Laws such as the Enforcement Act of 1870 were used to reinforce the 15th Amendment, but it had little effect. Intimidation and inflicting violence were some of the many ways African Americans were prevented from voting. In 1876, Jim Crow laws were passed to discriminate blacks. The KKK is an example of one of the groups that used intimidation and violence to prevent African Americans from voting. Almost a century later, though, in 1966, poll taxes and certain laws were declared unconstitutional, which helped a lot in giving African Americans the right to vote. In the years 1950 to 1960, the Civil Rights Movement went on. The purpose was to give African Americans equality, such as the right to vote. Segregation needed to end. Right in the middle of the whole movement, some of the most famous people in history played their parts. On December 1st, 1955, in Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa Parks refused to give her seat to a white man. After the white section was full, she was using her First Amendment right, freedom of speech, and she was arrested for that. Her act of defiance became an important symbol in the modern civil rights movement. She became an international icon. Then in 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. helped organize a march on Washington, where he also gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. This was very effective and helped move along the movement. In 1964, the 24th Amendment was added and it made it unlawful to deny citizens the right to vote if they didn't pay poll taxes. This was another one of the many barriers put up to prevent African Americans from voting. On March 7, 1965, there were thousands of African American men and women being beaten with clubs in a cloud of tear gas. They were attempting to march peacefully from the town of Selma, Alabama to Montgomery to protest a brutal murder and the denial of their constitutional right to vote. 600 people were attacked by state troopers. Not only were they being denied their right to vote, they were being denied of their First Amendment right, freedom of assembly. Either way, this was the turning point of African American suffrage movement. 8 days after the march, President Lyndon Johnson made a famous and powerful speech to Congress introducing rights legislation. He called the events in Selma a turning point in man's unending search for freedom. 5 months later, on August 6, 1965, President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which made things such as literacy tests and other ways to prevent African Americans from voting were made illegal. Even though they still have to jump obstacles and barriers, such as racism in the U.S., African Americans are very influential in our elections today. In fact, each year the black vote has been rising, and in 2012, during the Obama versus Romney election, they passed the white vote count. In all, about 66.2% of eligible black voters cast ballots, whereas only 64.1% of whites did. Over the years, African Americans voted more and more, and they are becoming more and more influential in elections. Compared to less than 20% of African Americans voting in the South in 1910 have come a long way. Today, African Americans have taken a huge role in U.S. politics. They are the most active in them. Coming to accept the kind of person who is not white in the United States has gone a long way. Our president is black. Dr. Dre is black. Beyonce is black. I mean, imagine a world who somebody is not accepted due to race. I mean, who doesn't love Beyonce? Yes, there are some sorts of segregation, but still America and its promise to give freedom is getting better every day.